नौनिहालाने जमात मुझे कुछ कहना है, पर है ये शर्त के ज़ाए मेरा पैगाम न हो.
Okay, so start things off. Who's married over here, first of all? Are you married?
Nope.
Are you married?
Nope.
Are you married?
Yes.
So you're the only one married over here. So I guess we should all take notes over here. And so
Definitely going to be taking
the
notes today.
marriage counselor
I'll
can
be
give
the
us some
marriage
advice.
I'll be the
marriage
counselor for today. Guys, get your pens ready.
Got it. Ready to go.
So what do you guys want to know?
Okay, wait, so what are we talking about today?
So I think the main thing what we want to start with first of all is what is marriage, and at the same time what is dating? These these two words that come together. What do they mean to you, and what is happening with this culture or this environment of dating today that we find in society?
Right, so more so the preeminence of dating, right?
Yeah.
Like what's causing it? Why are people going more and more towards this topic?
Okay, so if you guys want to talk about dating, we could talk about it in our society. You know, we grew up here for the most part, went to school here, university, whatnot. You come across it all the time. You know, you're attracted to the opposite sex. Then there's, you know, it's not an Islamic place, so there's no segregation of sex. So you're mingling, you know, with projects or whatnot, what you have you. So, you know, it's very easy to fall in, you know, like, you know, you like some girl or you like a girl like some guy, and then, you know, you guys have feelings and you guys want to date. So why is it that it's frowned upon or it's not allowed? What is Islam?
It's such a very common thing growing up in the West.
Yeah,
You know,
because
ever since elementary school, you know, there would be kids, you know, grade 5, 6,
Yeah.
it would be, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend. You're just like,
You
what's
left
going
out.
on, man?
And I
Left
feel
out.
like this is more so the case now than it was when we were kids.
yeah,
At least from my kind of
the way I look at it, sort of in one sense, is that casual dating is like marriage with no strings attached in one sense,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
right,
Because
yeah.
you bear no responsibility. For example, if in the situation where you had a child with the partner, you bear no responsibilities, no
But I
financial
mean, like for
responsibilities.
people living in this society, they don't have any alternative. You know, like at least we have a marriage system. You know, there's like steps that we follow, right?
No, well, they have a system too. They just choose not to get to it until the last resort. Like, you know, they'll try out every single thing possible. So
Right.
they'll say they want to get to know the person better. They'll live with them for a while, for 1 or 2 years. Then they'll be like, okay, now let's get married, right? So for them, it's more for like, you know, it could be for financial security. It could just be for like, you know, again, like, you know, tax gains or anything. Like just like, you know, that bondage of making it like a more powerful thing as you're together than when you're separate or common law, or there's many different definitions, right? But when you go back to dating and like, you know, why is it that it's frowned upon, or what are the negative aspects of it? The biggest thing that I always noticed when I was like growing up in the society and school and stuff was it takes the concept of commitment out, and it continuously does that with the more relationships you have. So if I have a relationship with somebody and I find a fault in that person, and I'll be like, okay, well, you know, I'm not gonna be with you anymore. I'm gonna find somebody else. Then I find a fault with that person. Then I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna be with somebody else. So I'm gonna keep letting go of my relationships because I want something better that doesn't happen.
And then
Yeah,
you're also comparing your successive relationships with your
the
previous
relationship.
Right.
So
And it's like that saying, you know, comparison is the thief of joy,
yeah,
right? So because you're going to be looking for certain qualities that you saw in somebody else
yeah.
in your current partner,
Right.
and it just ruins.
And you know what that does?
everything, no?
That not only makes you, that changes your again wiring of, you know, commitment. Number one, you won't
Yeah.
be committed to one person,
Yeah.
and it'll set up avenues for you to be able to, you know, then possibly cheat on your spouse or, you know, commit fornication because you're always looking for something else.
So it's
Yeah.
just a gateway.
Exactly.
You're always looking for another alternative because
Because
you can find one because you have the option of one, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing that I find over here is that in one sense, it's casual dating. I mean, it's more about exploring your options in one sense. And when you bring that attitude into a marriage, right, now you have commitments and you have responsibilities and you have all these things. But with dating, it's about exploring your options, seeing what is best, and never settling down with anybody.
Right.
And then so you have this atmosphere that you've created with yourself. But then when you get into marriage, it's a complete different ballgame altogether, and you're not prepared for anything that comes with the responsibilities that come with that. You know?
Right.
It's interesting. So I mean, with arranged marriage, you know, the system that we follow,
Yes.
what is arranged?
Okay, so you know this is something that I've discussed with a lot of my friends. It's just you know, one of those discussions that pop up with people
Yeah.
my age. You know, I feel like
Is it
arranged.
because it's for yourself or just for them?
No, just general discussion. But you know, I feel like there's
That's for
always
him to know and us to find out.
there's always two aspects of it to look at, right? So culturally, you know, arranged marriage, we just automatically think about you know, cousin marriages. Whereas another form of arranged marriage could be, you know, you telling me that I have you know, you have a cousin and they're looking for somebody to get married to, and you know, or you know, you have a friend, right? And you can kind of connect two people that way. So that too is arranged marriage. So arranged marriage doesn't always have to be your parents saying, "Hey, look, that's one of your cousins. Are you interested?" Right? I don't think it
Yeah,
just works that way.
in our culture, in just in Pakistani culture, you know, usually men tend to marry within our families a lot, right?
Yeah.
And there's some, I guess, let's discuss some pros and cons when it comes to that, because that tends to be a
And I mean, it's not
prevalent
just
thing.
Pakistani culture. I mean, even historically speaking, a lot of wealthier families used to, you know, I think we were talking about this earlier,
We were, yeah.
about how they try to keep their
The money in the family.
bloodline.
The
blood-
bloodline's
right?
pure. It's an economic gain, right? I have an X product and you have something else that I need, and so how about we join our houses or our families, and now you know we can both reap the benefits.
Yes,
And
I
I think
mean,
in this
like it's
sense,
nothing
too,
new.
I think in this sense, what also happens is that there's a clash between what the parents desire are for marriage in one sense when you have an arranged marriage, and what the children want in one sense too.
Yeah.
So, and what people don't understand is that the parents are a form of security in one sense.
Yeah.
They're not there to impose more difficulties for you in the process.
I mean,
right?
why would they want to
Make it
put
more
you in
difficult.
in any difficulties,
Yeah.
especially in your future, right?
Yeah.
Like they only want the best for you, right? That's one thing that
I agree with that, but I disagree with that. I feel like part of it is
they may not.
I wouldn't go as
understand.
far as saying laziness, but I feel like it's just like
Ease.
it's a sense of, you know, they don't want to do the work that's required, or it's easier for them to find somebody within your own family
Okay.
that they find is suitable. So they'll be like, okay, why don't you get married? Like, you know, or they'll look at it from like when you're like at a young age, if you know they have sisters and they have brothers and they have kids at the same time as they did. So they'll be like already thinking, okay, you know, maybe you guys can get married when you're older, right? So they're like, I feel like like in now, like our parents, they don't take that step to actually look outside and try to make an attempt to find somebody better, or maybe the system that they find they can't, you know, access it as easily, or they just don't trust it, or there's a stigma even with our parents and with us as well. But we can talk about that. You know, what is the actual system? What can they do? What are avenues they
Yeah,
can
and
approach?
even the concept of arranged marriage has evolved significantly over the past 30, 40 years. You know, we find out, you know, stories about parents tell us that, you know, I never saw, you know, your father before,
I
and
never
all
saw
of a
your
sudden
father, never saw your mother. We're like,
Should've
okay.
and all of a sudden we got married. But you know, with the advancements of technology, you know, you get to talk to the person, you get a chance to meet with their family, and really get a sense of understanding of who the person is before getting into.
So
the
this sense of understanding and
Yeah.
getting to know somebody, is this a product of the environment that we live in?
I think it's just
That-
like a.
because
No, but this is allowed, right? Like even with our parents. Okay, say they weren't able to see each other, but
Yeah.
that was not because it was
No,
an
that's
Islamic
definitely-
thing. That was just a
that's-
choice.
No, that's
it's not a
definitely
culture.
allowed.
It's a culture.
Islamically,
They could have
absolutely.
seen each
Islamically
other.
is permitted, but
Yeah.
I mean anything beyond that. You know, some people say that, you know, we want to go beyond that and get to know a person.
Like essentially go on a
better.
date, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. So is this a product of the environment that we live in? Because this
It is.
culture
It is.
and the
It's a
society
culture
that we
thing.
live
Yeah.
in.
It's a culture thing, and it's a matter of choice. Again, it comes back to the same thing, right? Like why do I want to meet you a few times to get to know you, right? It's because of compatibility. I want to know if we're compatible. But
Yeah.
say you're not compatible, right? And you're not going to be 100% compatible with everybody, with every single person, or just one person. You might be compatible with somebody to a certain extent, but some extent you won't be. But then that's where you have to work on your relationship, right?
So then how do you know?
Well, it's that.
Since
that's,
you've been through the
no,
process, right?
it's-
That's why I'm asking.
honestly, it's all
us along the way.
you don't know. Like, you know,
Yeah.
me and you and I, we don't know what's best for us. You know, now, our parents don't know what's best for us. They think they do. The only person that actually, the only being that knows what's best for us is God, right? So that's why you have to base the whole idea around God. So if there is a certain, you know, woman or man out there for, you know, a spouse, Allah Ta'ala knows best, and your purpose should be, or your effort should be to try to seek that out. So, you know, if you pray to God, be like, you know, God, you know my, you know, weaknesses, you know my strengths, you know what's best for me. So bring that forward and bring me closer to it.
And I think what's interesting on top of that too is that, you know, there are complexities that we do have to acknowledge as well. To give you an example, sometimes what happens is that the person, they have one type of desires and the other person has a different type of desires. Sometimes the parent standards that they have for their children is different. Sometimes the two parents that are coming with the in-laws, there's a clash over there too. So we
Yeah,
have to understand
family
that
issues. Yeah,
family issues. So it is very complex.
Yeah, it
You
is,
know,
100%.
we
It's a
have to-
complex
Pretty much
yeah.
marrying into the family.
Yeah, you're joining two big unions, right? It's
Exactly.
not just a communion of you two; it's a communion of two families, right? And when it comes to what you said was like, you know, why is it that it's like why do people want to meet? is again that because they want to get out of it. They want a reason. They're looking for a reason to say no. Because if obviously you're not going to be perfect, or I'm going to present myself as somebody that's perfect because I want you to like me, and vice versa, right? But if I'm looking for something that I don't like, then I'm going to be like, okay, no, you're not a good match for me, and I'm going to move on to the next person. How many times are you going to do that? You know,
So
then it
how is
becomes
this-
like a
a
vicious
recursive
cycle.
How is this different from dating then? Because earlier we discussed that dating is
Yeah, it
you're,
seems
you're
like
with
there's
one
a very
person.
fine line.
Exactly, you're with one person and then you don't like something, so you move on.
That's why I
then
was
you don't
trying to
like something.
clarify it.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why it is different, and it shouldn't be that way, right? It should be if you and your families have prayed over the course, you've done istikhara, you guys have prayed, and you guys have met as families, and you guys have mingled, and you guys feel like everything according to our families is a mix, and to a certain level, there's a level of respect. Then yeah, you can mingle within your families, and you can have a few conversations. And if you guys feel like you guys are a good fit, then you should proceed forward with prayers.
I think one thing that comes up is number one, sometimes they have certain standards that are almost impossible. You talk to some people, they're like, I want someone who's, beautiful, smart, rich, and have this level of education.
Checks off all the boxes.
My ride or die partner. I mean, it gets to the point that that person doesn't even exist anymore. If that person exists, please let us know. Like it doesn't even exist, right? So that's number one thing. The second thing is sometimes, or I think the thing that we should look for is be realistic.
Yeah.
Be realistic in the sense that we also have weaknesses that we are bringing to the table.
To the table, yeah.
Right? So there are certain strengths and weaknesses that come together as well. And the third thing, I think for me, myself personally, what I say is that I think someone you should find who is loyal to you, to defend you, to defend what you believe in the sense that you believe in the ideals of Islam. They should also have that same sort of loyalty towards you as well. So I
They
think
have the
that's
same
something.
values and same views.
Same values and
Same
beliefs.
values.
Exactly.
Coming back to what you
So
said
you
about
connect at some level.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
when you mentioned, I think in that there's maybe another hadith, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, where he gives the Prophet ﷺ gave precedence to her faith, to
Her faith
her
over-
piety
over
over her,
everything
yeah,
else,
so
yeah.
over everything else. And the reason I think
That's actually in the same hadith.
Oh,
where
okay,
the Holy
okay.
Yeah.
Prophet, peace be upon him, listed those 4 things.
yeah,
And so that you should marry the one who is
and
for her faith.
and you
for her
mentioned,
piety.
how would you know if she's pious? And again, that's something that you can have that, you already know from the family. You'll know if they come from a good family. Then when you have that conversation with that person, right? Whether it be the guy or be the girl, you can have those conversations like, do you pray? Or do you believe in God? Do you what do you think about Ahmadiyyat? What are your views? And you get a sense of, are they being realistic with you? Are they being real? Or is this something that they're just making up for this little setting? And if you guys can connect at a certain level, then that's great. But before you do that, you have to figure out, are you pious? Right? Are you somebody that is at that level where you
Good point.
want somebody that's like that? Because if I'm not pious, if I'm not at the standard that I need to set, then how can I expect somebody else to be? And how can she then follow me?
What are you bringing to the
Or
table?
how can he then
Exactly.
follow me?
And I think even to add that to the hadith as well, it's interesting. The Holy Prophet ﷺ also mentions beauty in there too, as something. So in a sense, it's realistic as well. We're
Yeah,
not
for
trying
sure.
to set a
Like you're not
standard
gonna
where
get
it's like,
you're not gonna get married to
completely
somebody you're not attracted to. Yeah, like that's a big thing. I think that's another thing like our parents like kind of, like
Overlook.
majority they overlook that. They're
Exactly.
like, no, but no, that attraction has to be there.
has
right?
to be
Yeah.
there as a level as well. in
And
one
and
sense,
it's
right?
and it's a good reason for you to try to look for another alternative. If you're not attracted to somebody, you're not attracted to somebody. There's nothing you can do about it, right?
Exactly.
Like to a certain extent, but then that's it. But if you truly don't find somebody attractive, that's okay. You can be like, okay, like let me look at somebody's. But you can't be unrealistic. Be like, I don't like the way her nose is, or like, I don't like the way her eyes are. Like, you can't say stuff like that. That's being rude. But
So let me ask you this. We've discussed how we have to look at what we bring to the table, right? So as men, what are our roles in a marriage? Like, we've heard so much about the roles of women, and none of us here are women, so obviously we can't comment on what their roles are and what's expected of them. But as men, what is expected of us in a marriage?
Yeah, I mean, like if anything, women are told more so what their roles are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that's recycled over and over again, right? But the roles of men is something that is sort of left out sometimes, I guess,
Right.
we could say.
I feel like I'm more of an old-fashioned person in this, in the sense that I feel like men need to take the leadership or the responsibility, in one sense, of doing their roles or performing their roles. And sometimes when men forget their roles, women forget their roles as well. So what I
And
mean,
the system begins to collapse.
collapse in one sense, right? Because what I mean by this is that the man is not only the provider in terms of the economic provider, but at the same time be there for the family, the children, help the wife with the cooking and the cleaning in whatever way possible.
That
Pretty much
emotional
everything-
involvement.
Exactly.
Pretty much everything that the Holy Prophet, peace be
Sallallahu
upon
alaihi
him, used to do.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
Because we hear narrations of his wife saying that, when he used to be at home during the day, he used to help out with the chores as well.
And-
Right? And I mean, considering how busy the life of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon
You
him
can only
was,
imagine,
he was
yeah.
being revealed the Holy Quran and all of these things were happening.
Exactly.
Even then, there are narrations from his wives that say that whenever he was at home, he would help
So there's that emotional attraction and the spiritual attraction and the physical attraction. All the attractions come together, though, right? And sorry, you're about to say something.
Yeah, I was
about-
going to say, with regards to the emotional attraction there and the emotional connection that has to be made, kind of going off of what you said with regards to how he helped out in the household. I read a hadith the other day about how the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he discussed that, when you spend money in the way of God, right? There's like 4 levels. You probably know the hadith better than me, but a man who spends money in the way of God, a man who spends money feeding the poor, and a man who spends money feeding his wife and children. The person who spends the money feeding his wife and children is the most loved, right? In the sight of God, right? So again, that just kind of shows the status that men have and the role that men have, where you're supposed to kind of let go of everything you have in the world and just kind of focus in and hone in on that family structure.
Yeah, and I think in the that's very well said. In the Holy Quran, we are made kawamun, right? Do you know? Can you
What does that mean?
Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala nisa.
Al-Nasari, and there's a condition on that, right?
Sorry, what does Kawamun mean?
Kawamun means we are the guardians. We are made as guardians over them. The reason we're given that title is because of a certain responsibility that we must fulfill. Like you mentioned, it's financial and it's security. So you provide a place for them. You take care of them. You protect them physically, where it may be like emotionally, and maybe mentally. But before we get to these things, I think it's important to note, before we talk about our roles, I think it's important to mention what is marriage. What are you going to get out of marriage? What is the purpose of marriage? And what are the roles? And why do we have to have a spouse? Why do we have to get married? So where do we go from there?
I think it's very simple, though, right? Like just the yin and the yang aspect of it as well, that you are only half of what you could be in terms of when you get together with that person who fulfills you 100%. To fulfill your deen, fulfill your responsibilities, you can only be so much yourself. And this is what elevates you and takes you to the next step. You have someone with you, though. And men in general, and women, or just people in general, we're not known to be isolated characters or isolated
social beings.
Right? That's why the Quran never talks about, or Islam talks about celibacy, being celibate as something that is promoted in one sense. We denounce that altogether because human beings, and Islam has created a nature in the sense that we enjoy partnerships, and we enjoy these friendships that we have with our partners, and we have this level of, again, emotional and physical attraction with them.
Yeah, so like that based off that attraction, I guess like the most primitive reason for marriage is procreation, to have children. And regarding this, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that marriage is there for you, is so that through marriage, those are born who remember him, right? So that has to do with having a pious progeny. So the basis of your marriage is so that you can create progeny, you can have children that remember him, because again, the purpose of our creation is to recognize God, right? And to be able to worship him. So that's your main purpose, right? Now, how do you recognize God through your marriage? They say that you can only know half of God. You only know half of God up until you're married. Once you get married, you find God as a whole. But that's just a statement, that's not how it happens. You have to do the work to find the other half. And how does that work? And I was thinking about this the other day, and we're like Allah Ta'ala said, we're created in pairs, right? So men, we have certain faculties, we have certain natural abilities. For example, men are naturally just super strong. They're stronger than women. They're always going to be stronger than women. Women have certain faculties that men can't. For example, they can give birth to children. We can't. Right?
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, emotional intelligence, right? So we both have different areas, that emotional faculties or what have you. But because we're both different, we represent the same being because he created both of us. So in order for you to be actually fully able to recognize God, you have to be able to understand and inculcate the faculties of your spouse within yourself and become one and establish the unity of God, which is the basis of marriage, right? So up until you don't become, kind and, loving and understanding towards your spouse, and you're not good to your spouse, which is again, hukukul ibad, and that's the second part of finding God is, being good to creation, and that is foremost your spouse. So up until you're not good to them, you're not going to be able to find the other half of God because you don't know a whole side of what God is like through your other spouse.
And I think taking this conversation into another direction, I think that's very important today, is that people who are watching this episode, is that how can you make the system of marriage work? In one sense, right? Because obviously that's what a lot of people have these issues today, that they're looking for answers.
I guess the first question would be, does this system of arranged marriage work?
I mean, I personally feel, yeah, it does work.
Okay.
And I feel like, there's this interesting quote that's mentioned one time is that the hardest thing in this world, or the greatest thing in this world, is to be yourself. Everybody's trying to tell you, do this. People are telling you should perform your marriage like this or do that. But at the end of the day, your marriage, you understand the best. So that's the one advice I always give as well. Number two, the advice that I always give is that every single week, you should take time out for your partner. Take time away from everything and get to know that person that you've married. Right? Because sometimes we get so caught up in kids and other responsibilities that we forget the partner that we married in one sense, right? And the third thing I always mention is that you should always appreciate. Appreciation goes a long way. The most smallest thing, I love the fact that respect those differences as well. And I think Murabbi Sahib, you could clarify this as well. Hazur has mentioned a very interesting quote about this too, about how to make marriage work as well.
Yeah, so I mean, nobody's perfect, right? Hazur Anwar will tell this to new couples as well. One of the most beautiful things that I've heard is also this, that I know Hazur says that when you see something positive, then open your eyes, your ears, and your mouth. Acknowledge it.
Right.
And when you see something negative or something that you dislike, close all three.
Right.
Yeah,
and so this creates harmony in that relationship. And I mean, this goes for all human relationships as well, right?
Absolutely.
But more so for marriage because, you're living with the person for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
The same person.
I'm not married though, but I think I do have some more points I could bring on this too. Another point that comes to mind as well is that when you go to sleep at night, don't go to sleep angry. A lot of times what ends up happening is that when we have these thoughts, we wake up in the morning and we have these same thoughts again. So you have to make sure and be mindful of that as well. And at the
Talking
same
about communication, you got
exactly,
communicate.
you have to communicate. And sometimes they say that there's a saying that goes, communication is the key to success.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to be very mindful of that too, right? So I think those are a few things that also come to mind
I
as
really
well.
liked the stuff that Ghulam was saying earlier. It was very well put. Do we sort of romanticize instead of being realistic about marriage and stuff? Do we naturally just romanticize it and
No, I don't
overlook a lot of the things that we need to be looking at?
No, I think it's natural for you to do that, and it's a good thing. That's where the love and affection comes, and that's where the happiness and the excitement of getting married to somebody comes from, and that should be there because that's what keeps the spark in your marriage, right? That are being romantic and doing little gestures, and that's just being kind to each other, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, once you get married, like I'm talking about from experience, your marriage is hollow without the spirituality because it's just what do? You go to work, or you're at home, you cook, you clean, you sleep, you go to work again. There's no essence of it unless there's any spiritual aspect to it, and that's how you can grow together as one being. By Allah Ta'ala says that you should do goods, excel in doing good between each other. What is the verse?
Fastabiqul khair.
First of all, yeah. So you want to do that, and you want to do that
Vie
with your
with
spouse.
one another.
Yeah. So if your spouse is waking you up in the morning for tahajjud namaz, how amazing is that? You guys are reading namaz together, ba jamaat. You guys are reading the books of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. You guys are reading Quran together. You guys, and you're creating an environment that when you have kids, they can thrive in that environment and you can have that progeny. So you need to have that spiritual essence.
Absolutely.
Without it, you can't go forward. And that spiritual essence is not only just in spirituality, that carries forward in your physical aspect as well. The act of conceiving is not just a physical thing. It has a spiritual aspect to it because whatever your spiritual state is going to be then carried forward into the spiritual state of your child, right? So that has another aspect to it too. So without spirituality, your marriage is void. You need that aspect, but that's the part that people overlook, and that is what lasts. Like the romanticism, it dies. It always does. But if you have that, it won't. Not only will it not die, and you'll find that other half of God. Otherwise, you won't. It's just a statement.
I was talking to my cousin about this, and I was asking. She just got married recently, and I was asking her, tell me some of the, give me some strategies or tips or something that you could recommend. She's like, the funniest thing is that I thought we would argue, in the first year, they say the first year is the hardest year of marriage, that we'd argue about the big things, maybe about the purpose of life or things like that. And she's like, to be honest.
Very philosophical there.
You talked about you didn't put the towel back. Or
Exactly. And then the funny thing happened to me was it was the little things. Like, you didn't put the towel back or, you didn't do this. And little things made a big difference. And I was like, why is that though, right? I thought it would be the bigger thing.
Which is apparently healthy for
And what she said, and what she said was that, what it is that you have two different lifestyles that you grew up in.
Right.
So when you put those together, it's those little things that make much more of a difference.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
It's a big transition period. Right? Like an example that I like to give is you have to think when you're thinking about you and your spouse, when you're thinking about another relationship with your spouse, you have to think of the example of a glass of water, right? Water has certain properties, right? Now, what if I was to take a spoon of sugar and drop it in the water? What happens? It's gonna sink, right? Because the sugar has certain properties and the water has certain properties. Both things are holding on to their properties and they are separate. But what happens when I stir the water, right? That's when the sugar will dissolve into the water. But that's only if the sugar lets go of its properties, is willing to dissolve, and the water is willing to accept the properties of the sugar. So when that happens, you have sweet water, right? So that's the idea. When like a couple, when they live together, these little things come up, but you have to be willing to let go. You have to be willing to accept each other. You have to be willing to compromise and
So maybe pick your battles.
yeah, pick your battles and,
Wisely.
and dissolve within each other so that you guys can become sweet water, as
But
they say.
in all honesty, I do agree with that as well. And I think that, for example, another thing, I see my own parents as an example of this. I've never seen my parents in front of me, have a disagreement of some sort. And I asked my mom about this too. I'm like, why is that? And she's like, one thing that we always want to instill in our children was the fact that when we have a disagreement, we are going to go into a separate room and come back, so that the image that we portray always to our children, no matter what,
that they're
is
one.
we are one.
Yeah, they're one.
Right.
Yeah.
And that unity, as opposed to disunity, goes a long way in the eyes of us growing up, and we see that, wow, like our parents are always together.
Not doing something like that would be destructive to the entire
family.
family.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And again, it goes back again to the purpose of your marriage is to establish the unity of Allah Ta'ala in your household, right? So that again goes back to the same point. So everything that you do has to come back to the unity of God, right? And this is exactly why it's so important to find a pious spouse. Because if your spouse is not pious, you're not going to be able to do these things. You're going to have to work so much harder to get to that level, and your progeny is going to also have issues, right?
So just quickly, I just wanted to ask a question, touch on something, right? Divorce culture, right? So, in the Friday sermons of beloved Huzur, may Allah be his helper, he has talked about the rampant increases of divorces within the Jamaat, right? So, you're right that spirituality and physicality and emotionality play a huge role. So would you just say it's just, a relationship that's completely devoid of spirituality that results in these divorces? Or do you think there's other factors there that kind of...
Well, not necessarily. It depends on both people, right? Like if you have a certain compatibility, you can make it work. But if you're that type of mindset that you're not willing to make it work, that's why Islam has that out for you. It's not that, you can't do it. It's obviously it's frowned upon, but divorces happen for many reasons. I can't comment on that. But yeah, of course, if you are both God-fearing, that's the condition. The condition is you have to be God-fearing. If you were God-fearing and you act with each other in a way that as if God was watching and he would mind what you're doing to each other, you would not get divorced.
Absolutely.
Right?
Pretty much we conclude that taqwa, righteousness,
is the
especially
key.
looking at ourselves first,
Absolutely.
is the key to
You can
a
always
fruitful,
change yourself.
harmonious
Yeah.
relationship.
So you got to change yourself. It starts with yourself.
Wow, I learned a lot today from this. I definitely took a lot of notes from this too.
I was just stopping the urge to take notes. Just watch the episode later on. But I
Yeah, that
definitely
was
had
very
a
good.
good time. We should definitely.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you. No, we're good.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Jazakallah.
All right.
नौने हालाने जमाते मुझे कुछ कहना है